Hey guys, what is up? AwesomeTheSauce here. Hope you guys are having a great day and welcome to another epic video. Today we're gonna be talking about two new spell leaks that happened today. It seems like every video is a spell leak, but I want to make a video on these because they actually seem really good compared to what we've seen before. And I think for the schools that they affect and for the schools that they go against, it's gonna mean a lot. So without further ado, let's get right into it. There's a new fire spell. There's a new ice spell. They're kind of crazy. They add a lot to the schools. Let's get right into it. So the fire spell is what I have every time I PvP on this game. Meltdown. We've only seen one spell so far, and that's the myth one, and that's the only one that converts shields. So if you guys are unfamiliar with that one, it's called Betrayal. It can convert shields into traps. So essentially, let's say that I were to put on 3 tower shields on myself, the spell would turn every tower shield into some sort of myth trap for the myth wizard to use. Now, Meltdown is similar, but instead of converting the shields on your enemy into traps, it converts the shields on your enemy into overtimes. You know, I was thinking about this, and at first it seemed like, I mean, I guess it's cool. It's not really that crazy, now is it? But actually, this spell, Meltdown, could be really good, and I actually like the way that it's designed quite a bit. For one, we already know that overtimes literally counter shields, right? So let's say that someone were to be shield spamming. It's not like fire ever has a problem with it. All you really ever have to do is elf. So for any purpose other than, you know, strategic purposes, you would always use a fire elf. So what are these strategic moves and strategic moments? Well, one, let's say that you do have maybe 2 blades and a bubble, 2 blades and a furnace, maybe, like, you know, a few buffs, and you go for something like an Inferno Salamander. Right now, it's very common for a lot of people to literally just shield again, and they will and I do this all the time, right? You will keep shielding until the overtime is done, so that the second blade that you have for the follow-up hit, like maybe a s'mores, maybe, you know, in a free, I don't know, something, right? Your follow-up hit will never really happen because they all that's happening is they're getting shield spammed. So a spell like Inferno Salamander, which should be really good for combos, very often what can happen is someone with Fire Ward can just brace and shield spam and make your follow-up hit literally not possible. But what I like about Meltdown is that it doesn't use the blade that you intend to use for the follow-up hit. And let's say someone is shielding after something like an Inferno Salamander instead of triaging, for example, then you can convert like a volcanic shield into 2 more overtime. So then the Inferno Salamander, 1, it's not triageable, and 2, if they shield it, now you're getting the full damage of the Inferno Salamander because the Meltdown overtime breaks the shield first. And this really completes Fire's toolkit. I mean, they already have a spell that removes blades, right? They have Steel Charm. We saw in the previous spell leak a spell that can convert traps on yourself into overtimes on your opponent. And now they have even more abilities to deal with shield spam. So really what it seems like is that fire is going to be countered much more heavily than ever before by one spell and one spell alone, and that is weakness. I think weakness is going to become extremely meta, and what I find really interesting about that is that weakness is a very bad idea against some schools. Like, Death actually has weakness counters, and some of these other, like, conditional spells are going to be completely based around weakness from what we've seen. For example, right, there's a spell called Putrefaction that converts blades into weaknesses in this upcoming update. And that's going to make Death actually much better against fire, because that seems like the one thing, and it makes sense as an overtime school why they would be weak against it, but it seems like they're going to be much weaker against it compared to other things. And if you guys don't know, that's a matchup that's very in the favor of fire right now. So small little things like this could actually, like, make fire really good in some ways, but it does create weaknesses in other ways. What I'm really happy that they're doing is that they're actually moving fire towards an overtime route, and that's really important. I think Inferno Salamander did do a lot for fire in the sense that it gave it a very good overtime. This is the best overtime other than King Art for Myth, in my opinion. And it is really good. It does a lot of damage. I still think quite a bit of that damage is stuck on that first bit, so it's still not that good. So the fact that they're still building on their overtime identity, I think it is good. I think the more overtimes that Fire has at its disposal, the better it'll feel, because it's what it's supposed to do. And if you guys didn't watch the video, the updated Fire Scion is literally going to have a double ability based on overtimes. So now we've not seen just one spell, but 2 different spells that are going to come into Fire's toolkit that can turn things into multiple overtimes to fulfill that double Scion, the gambit. I guess that's what they're calling it. So basically right now, even though Scion's based on traps, there's going to be an updated Scion, a second one that's based on overtimes, and we've seen 2 different spells that can let you easily do 2 overtimes. And that's if you don't double Fire Elf. That's if you don't summon a Fire Elemental minion and let it overtime for you. There's a lot of ways to do this. So there's going to be lots of strategy around Scion that currently for Fire simply does not exist. But that's not the only spell that got leaked today. So let's move on to the Ice spell that got leaked today. Now, a spell that got leaked today is called Oni's Destruction. Now, there are a lot of people asking, what is up with all these Onis? You feel me? This is now the 4th spell in this update that has Oni in its name. There was a Storm utility called Oni's Attrition. There was a Doom Oni spell that does double drains if you have a bunch of shields on you. And there's also another death utility that can convert cards into shields. So who knows what that might mean? There might be like an Oni boss in Lemuria. There might be, I don't know, more Oni themed stuff. I don't know what it is, but let's look at what the spell actually does. Now, the spell's very interesting because unlike the previous leaked Ice spell, which I thought was crazy, it literally converts opponent blades into self shields. This one converts opponent blades into opponent traps. So let's say that someone were to have a bunch of blades on them, right? Like maybe like 3 blades. You can convert those 3 blades into 3 traps, and presumably they'll be the same value as a normal trap right now, which is a 30 trap. Now, that's really interesting because I don't think we have really anything as Ice Wizards that are based around traps, and that's because really what Ice is right now is just overtime into the hit. That's all it really is. But now with so many schools having counters to blades, I don't think just double blading into a frostbite into a hit is going to work anymore. So it's really good that Ice is getting something a little bit more offensive just so that they're not always just shield spamming. I mean, I could go on about all the traps that you need, but I will say this. I don't think you would use this spell unless you can at least get a couple of traps on. 3 traps would be insane, right? If you have 3 blades, even like an elemental blade. Let's say someone puts on an elemental blade, or I don't even, like a dark pact, right? There are multiple spells that put on more than 1 blade. In one round, you could have multiple traps just using the spell. Out of that combo, you have maybe a hit and bubble combo. Maybe you'll have minion combos. Maybe you can even do something involving Shrike if you have more and more traps and offense. I will say this, unless we actually get a spell that works off of traps, much like how Doom Oni works off of shields, if we don't get that, I'm not really 100% sure how much Ice can actually use this spell. Maybe it's just a good idea just if you have a lot of shields, instead of using, I believe it was called like Cloud of Blades or something. Instead of using Wall of Blades was the spell, right? Instead of using it to convert blades into shields on yourself, especially if you already have shields, maybe this is just a good way to drive the tempo forward for you. I really only see this being good with either stun combos or minion combos, which is something that a lot of Ice Wizards don't use, but it is something that I think we'll see a lot more of, especially for Ice, because so far we've seen so many, like we already know, right, that Myth and Storm can already counter blades, right? Now, Death can convert them into weaknesses. Other Ice Wizards can convert blades into all kinds of things. There's very few schools now remaining. I think it's just Life and Balance, and we don't even know about all the spells they're going to get. There are very few schools remaining that can actually not counter double blade, which is really crazy. I think compared to Wall of Blades, this one is actually not as bad. I think it just adds to Ice. I like Ice having some sort of offense that's not too crazy, because otherwise I feel like every Ice game is always going to be a timer game. So honestly, I actually like this one a lot too. That's going to wrap up this video. We have an Oni's Ice spell utility coming, and we also have Meltdown coming, which could add a lot, definitely a lot more strategy to Fire, maybe even a good amount of strategy to Ice. Let me know what you guys think of these spells. Do you guys think that it's cool that, you know, we're getting all of this, or do you think it's actually so much that you don't even know what to think? That's where I'm at right now. There's so many options that PvP is going to be so dynamic. I think all the bosses that we're going to get for PvE updates, they're probably going to go crazy with all this power that we're getting as Wizards. I still want more clarity on exactly how we're going to get these spells. That's going to be a big one for me because I plan on using these spells across schools. So that's what I'm really excited for. Let me know what you guys are going to do with Meltdown and this new Oni Ice utility. And as always, if somebody has not told you you're awesome today, they doing something wrong, drop a like if you enjoyed. Leave a sub if you're new. I look forward to reading your comment and stay awesome. And yeah,